Good day to all. Welcome to Extreme Recap. Greetings, everyone. I'll be back with recaps in this video, and this time I'll talk about seythe, a 2021 thriller. I like to wish everyone a wonderful day before we get into the story. After that, please, let's jump right into the plot. The film opens with Sophie Scott, a young downhill ski champion who was recently diagnosed with the disease and now lives with her mother blind. Her Olympic dreams are run when she is determined to have retina pigmentosa, a degenerative eye sickness causing visual deficiency of the. Since surrendering her skiing dream, Sophie has gone to feline sitting for affluent clients to bring in cash. She has been sneaking out of the house without informing her mother after a recent cat-carrying appointment. She also becomes frustrated as a result of her blindness and insists that she complete all of her work on her own. Her mother stops Sophie just as she is about to leave the house and asks her why she is going outside by herself. After checking Sophie's bank account, her mother inquires about the substantial sum of money she has there despite Sophie's apologies. The mother blames her for having a friendly benefactor, yet she rapidly lets her mom know that the cash comes from the tips she gets from feline sitting for rich guardians. With her mom fulfilled, Sophie goes out to flag down a taxi and make a beeline for her next feline sitting position. Sophie finally arrives at Deborah's gorgeous mansion after a short distance of travel. Near a tranquil forest, the house is far from the bustle of New York City. Deborah gives Sophie a hug, acquaints her with the house security alert, and her adored feline. Deborah is celebrating her divorce by going on vacation. What's more, Sophie is the one in particular who answered her feline sitting position posting in a brief time frame, immediately following Deborah's departure. Sophie rapidly puts a GPS beacon on the feline's neck, and video calls her companion Cam for a legitimate perspective on the house. Every detail that Camps reveals to Sophie as she views the house through his eyes awes Sophie, from the elaborate decorations to the breathtaking natural beauty of the property's surroundings. Subsequent to investigating the principal floor, Sophie follows Camp to the cellar where she finds 3 rooms. One of the rooms holds a magnificent treat for Sophie, a wine store stocked with containers of old uncommon wines from different brands. Sophie can't avoid the enticement and picks a jug to take, however Kim mediates, declining to permit her to go on with her stealing ways. Here, it is made clear to us that the money Sophie's mother inquired about did not come from tips for cat sitting. Rather, it came from selling the expensive wine that Sophie stole from the homes of wealthy people, where she was unable to SAT without Camp's assistance. As she checks her messages, Sophie settles into the guest room. Through the app, which connects visually impaired individuals with sighted instructors, she hears her mother reiterate her advice to use the seythe, as she continues to smoke outside the house. She receives a call from Deborah asking her to turn on the security system. Sophie figures out how to arrive at the framework by contacting the window, and effectively enacts it. By smoking outside the house shortly thereafter, Sophie understands that she has inadvertently locked herself out with nobody around to help her, and she quickly calls her companion Kemp for help. Sadly, Kemp doesn't get, leaving Sophie with no other decision except for to download her mom's suggested ocean from the. With the application introduced, Sophie contacts the most readily accessible teacher who encourages her to look for help from her neighbor. Sophie hangs up, dissatisfied with the distance to the nearest neighbor. She then decides to get in touch with a new teacher, Kelly, a Florida-based tactical gamer. Upon realizing that the front door cannot be opened easily, Kelly suggests going to the ground floor. Kelly directs Sophie to a different sliding door that can take her inside the house, despite her determination to complete the task on her own. Following Kelly's directions, Sophie is able to get the door open and get back into the house. But in the process, sets off the security alarm. She promptly races to switch off the caution and figures out how to stop it on time. Excited with the outcome of the ocean from the application and Kelly's direction, Sophie focuses on certain to save Kelly's contact as she sinks into bed sometime thereafter. She tunes into the Paralympic skiing, where she's helped to remember her fantasy to turn into an Olympic skier. Her companion Cam even urges her to think about the Paralympics with him, where he will go about as her seeing aid. In any case, Sophie stays questionable, still spooky by her broke goals that toppled the fantasy she lived. At the point when she at last nods off, we discover that somebody has been watching out for the manor. A gatecrasher slips into the manor undetected, debilitating the security framework to allow us to achieve in. With the coast apparently clear, the burglars draw out their weighty bores and focusing lights to advance to Deborah's award assets. Just as they put away an expensive painting as they approach it. There is a visible wall behind it. In fact, a secret locker is concealed there. Yet, before they can hold on to their fortune, the noise jolts Sophie out of her slumber and awakens her. She goes looking for the cat after stepping out of her bedroom. The tracking device is taken out by the girl, which, when she taps the button in the app, emits a small beep. During this time, the robbers are trying to keep quiet when they suddenly hear a faint beeping sound, which causes them to panic. Sophie doesn't know that the robber is also following the sound. In the pursuit, the robber and Sophie are about to face off, but Sophie's good fortune keeps her away from the location where the robber goes. Meanwhile, the second robber places a device on the wall and opens it to reveal a $7 million secret locker. Sophie's attention is drawn to the door opening sound, which makes her feel uneasy. Ernie, the first robber, rushes to Dave, the second robber, after surveying the house. Sophie overhears them saying that he thinks someone is in the house, and Ernie tells Dave to keep drilling the locker while he looks for the person who might still be there. In rush and awfulness, when Sophie turns around, a vase is broken. Ernie is enticed to her location by this, but she escapes before he arrives. Ernie accelerates his search after the vase break signals the presence of an additional person in the house. Prior to the person calling the police, Sophie immediately alerts the police of the intruders after finding the safe spot. However, as the police will consume a large chunk of the day in light of the house's area, Sophie, vast ocean for me. Kelly is approached once more for assistance out of horror. Kelly promptly teaches Sophie to remain where she is, while simultaneously, Ernie sees Sophie's possessions in the visitor room. Sophie, who is presently in a frenzy, walks into the house at random to find a way out and denies listening to Kelly. Kelly becomes weary of advising Sophie to remain down, so she tells her where the looter is at the present time and helps her departure. In any case, uneasiness makes Sophie go for the front entryway and take off. Stay put. You can produce it. Yes. No. No. You cannot return in that manner. Take note that the other guy is present. Shit. At the point when she is going to go close to the entryway, Ernie advises Dave regarding the presence of someone else in the house and afterward continues to call his chief. After the supervisor trains them to proceed with their work, Dave goes to bore while Ernie chooses to swipe the house to track down Sophie. Sophie seizes the opportunity and rushes for the front door as the intruders are both distracted by their work. No, little Sophie. Yet, to her misfortune, she experiences the third burglar, Otis. He hangs up on Kelly and takes Sophie to the other robbers, who were always outside the house. Ernie learns from their search of her phone that she has already reported them to the police. The interlopers then ask their supervisor for guidelines on the most proficient method to think about Sophie. However, when Sophie says she is a visually impaired young lady, the manager excuses her as a non-issue and advises them to save her life. As the looters are using up all available time to bore the storage before the police show up, Sophie thinks of an arrangement and gives the burglars a suggestion to dispose of the police. Nevertheless, in return they need to give her a portion of $7 million secret in a protected in the wall. She shows the wine bottle she stole from the debris house and intended to sell elsewhere when the robbers have doubts about the blind girl. After that, Sophie called 911 a second time to cancel her first report. However, the operator asserts that the police must respond even if a false alarm is reported. Before the police arrive, everyone removes the tools they used to break in and turns off the lights when they hear this. Sooner or later, a police officer arrives to make sure everything is okay at the house. As she scans the room for any indications of trouble, Deputy Brooks enters the house to check on Sophie. Despite Brooks's persistent inquiries, Sophie maintains a tight lid on the intruders. Not long before Streams leaves, she attempts one final chance to get some information about the interloper. However, Sophie continues to assert that it was a false alarm. The operator then abruptly informs the officer that Kelly has submitted a blind girl's report exposing Sophie's fabrications. Sophie's pulse quickens. When Ernie arrives, Deputy Brooke immediately calls for assistance, determined to catch the robbers. Her arrangements rapidly go bad as Otis One of the interlopers rushes at her and a battle breaks out among them. Yes. The rope around the police officer's neck is tightened by Otis until her body goes limp. Sophie succeeds in snatching Brooks's gun in a last-ditch effort to flee and hides in the house to call Kelly for assistance. Sophie bravely steps outside the house once more under Kelly's direction, and Otis follows her from behind. After that, Kelly tells Sophie to come back to the house, since it is getting cold outside. In the greenhouse itself, Ernie finally discovers Sophie hiding with a knife in his hand. Kelly helps Sophie set up so that she can shoot Ernie in the right spot before she succeeds. Dave is drilling the safe box at the same time. Sophie then, at that point, leaves the region, and a brief time later, Otis finds Ernie's dead body. Shortly after Otis enters the basement, Sophie appears and shoots a projectile through his stomach. Even though Sophie's internet connection is deteriorating, the man still manages to get up and get closer to her, making it difficult for her to aim correctly. And finally, at last, as of now, Dave, who is as yet working with the penetrating, is the only robber still inside the house. Kelly assists Sophie in capturing the third robber while Sophie's phone battery is down to 5%. The first shot that she fires misses. What's more, as she plans to shoot the last shot, her telephone passes on, abandoning her with Dave. After the abrupt end of the Kelly call, Sophie remains focused on Dave and advises him to hold on until the police show up. Understanding Sophie's visual deficiency, Dave tries to flee the scene and steal his share of the money. He continues to move toward his bag despite Sophie's repeated warnings. Sophie tries to stop him, but her instincts are triggered by Dave's movements, forcing her to issue a final warning to him. Dave gives up by dropping to his knees. But as he grabs Deputy Brooks's taser, his true intentions become clear. Luckily, Sophie responds and fires at him before he can pull the trigger. Sophie tells the boss when she hears Dave's phone ring after all three intruders have been eliminated, Rico, that the task is finished. Subsequently, she would rather not botch the opportunity to take. As a result, while she waits for the police, she goes to the locker to take some of the money for herself. She is unaware, however, that Rico is waiting outside. After that, the boss decides to take matters into his own hands and surprise everyone by showing up. Much to the horror of Sophie. We discover that Rico is Deborah Z's former husband here. Additionally, he hired all three of the robbers to break into the safe and steal his wife's money. Rico also suggests that Deborah wasn't aware of the safe or where the money was in the house. Keep it quiet, Sophie, and work with him to split the money. Nonetheless, Sophie's dithering triggers Rico to go to exceptional lengths. The man starts chasing her around the house after pulling out his gun. As Sophie scrambles to dodge Rico, she conceals in the kitchen in a final desperate attempt to certainly stand out away from her. A glass is thrown in a different direction by her. Rico succumbs to the stunt, and Sophie bolts out of the kitchen. Be that as it may, the man's point is great. He shoots a shot at her, hitting her leg simultaneously. Regardless of the injury, Sophie makes it to the greenhouse in time to flee, where she finds the dead body of Ernie. She cleverly steals his phone and unlocks it with his fingerprints. She then, at that point, dials Rico's number and uncovers his area. When his telephone begins ringing, Sophie jumps all over the chance to reverse the situation on him and rapidly starts shooting, genuinely harming Rico. Rico continues to use the launches in spite of being shot in the back. A vicious attack on her makes Sophie's heart race with fear. In a last-ditch effort to defend herself, she grabs a wine bottle and swings it hard, hitting Rico's head, which was already damaged. Rico succumbs to the girl's barrage of blows until he collapses before her. Sophie collapses to the ground while waiting for the police to arrive after eliminating all intruders. Following emergency clinic treatment, her caring mother provides her with therapy. Here, Sophie uncovers to her mom her aspiration to join the Paralympics and return to skiing. Her mother is overjoyed but has questions about how to pay for the training. In addition, Sophie smiles while smiling at her backpack, suggesting that she brought some of the money from the house with her. Sophie contacted Kelly once more over the course of the following days to inform her that she had resumed skiing, this time with the assistance of her friend Cam, who acts as her ski instructor. Yet again, the film closes with Kelly basically spurring Sophie in her new excursion of life while she takes a full breath and prepares to ski down the mountain slope to recover her skiing champion status. Alright, folks, that is all the recap of See for me. 2021. Turn on notifications, please subscribe for more videos like this, and like the channel to support it. Thank you very much for watching.